Ladies and gentlemen, listen closely because today is not about noise, it's about the good voice. There's a voice inside every single one of us. It doesn't shout, it doesn't scream, it doesn't beg for attention. It whispers, it nudges, it challenges you, it says, get up, do better, try again, don't quit. That voice is the difference between ordinary lives and extraordinary legacies. The world is full of voices telling you what you can't do. You're too young, you're too late, you're not smart enough. You know those voices, they are loud, persistent, and they love mediocrity. But the good voice, it's different, it's calm, it's focused. It doesn't react to fear, it declares intention. It tells you, you were not born to be average. The tragedy today is not that people fail. The tragedy is that people stop listening to the good voice and start listening to the comfortable voice. The comfortable voice tells you, relax, you've done enough, don't take risks, don't aim higher. The comfortable voice destroys more dreams than failure ever could. The good voice invites you into discomfort. It pushes you toward discipline. It asks questions other people avoid. Why are you settling? Who told you that you can't win? Why are you still waiting for permission? Every major breakthrough in history started with someone who listened to that voice. They weren't the smartest, they weren't the most connected, they weren't the most gifted, but they were the most obedient to that inner calling. They refused to silence it. You want a better life? Stop negotiating with excuses. Stop outsourcing your vision. Stop letting other people's opinions drown out your potential. The good voice doesn't care where you were born, who doubted you, or how many times you failed. It only cares about who you're becoming. Some of you are a decision away from a different reality, a new business, a new identity, a new chapter, but you keep waiting for the right moment. Let me tell you something, there is no perfect moment. There is only the voice telling you to start. So today, make a commitment, honor that voice, protect that voice, feed that voice, because the day you stop listening to it, you stop growing, and the day you stop growing, you start dying. Slowly, quietly, invisibly. But the day you trust it, everything changes, you get stronger, you get clearer, you get dangerous, you become someone people can't ignore. Not because you're loud, but because you're undeniable. Remember this, the good voice challenges comfort and demands growth. It is not the voice that entertains or soothes you. It is the one that pokes the places you try to ignore. It sits at the intersection of who you are and who you know you could become. This voice is not interested in making you feel safe. It is more interested in making you aware of the gap between your reality and your potential. Most people misunderstand growth. They think growth is about adding more things, more skills, more opportunities. In truth, growth begins when you allow the good voice to disrupt your comfort. That disruption is uncomfortable because comfort is seductive. Comfort tells you that you are fine as you are, that life is good enough, that change is unnecessary. The good voice does the opposite. It tells you that complacency leads to stagnation, and stagnation leads to irrelevance. Comfort is the enemy people willingly invite into their lives because it doesn't look like a threat. It disguises itself as peace, rest, stability, or even happiness. But if you look closely, comfort slowly erodes hunger, ambition, and drive. It teaches you to accept less than you deserve and convinces you to stop at the doorstep of your potential. The good voice shows up in those moments when the world tells you to slow down or stay where you are. It whispers that you're capable of more, even when your current results don't reflect it. This voice isn't loud because it doesn't need to be. It relies on truth, not volume. The truth doesn't scream, it persists, and that persistence is what bothers people who want growth without discomfort. That voice pushes you to confront your weaknesses rather than hide behind your strengths. Anyone can operate where they're already good. Anyone can perform when everything is certain, but very few step into rooms where they might fail, where they might get embarrassed, where they might discover that their best isn't enough yet. Yet that is exactly where growth is hiding. Growth is found in the friction between your desire and your discipline. The good voice drags you into that friction. It forces you to ask the hard questions. Why aren't you doing the thing you said you would? Why are you surrounded by people who don't challenge you? Why do you keep repeating patterns that sabotage your future? Most will ignore those questions because comfort gives them temporary relief from responsibility. Comfort protects them from confrontation. Growth demands it. The good voice doesn't let you pretend. It doesn't care about your reputation, only your evolution. It calls out your laziness, your procrastination, your excuses, and your justifications. It exposes every story you tell yourself to avoid the work required for transformation, and that exposure feels like punishment to those who have fallen in love with ease, but it isn't punishment, it's the first step toward mastery. Mastery cannot exist where comfort dominates. Mastery requires pressure, repetition, correction, humility, and sacrifice. The good voice will never allow comfort to rob you of those ingredients. Think about every major leap in your life. None of them happened when you were relaxed. They happened when you were uncomfortable, when life forced you to choose between staying the same or stepping forward. The good voice amplifies that choice. It reminds you that comfort offers satisfaction today, but regret tomorrow. Growth offers frustration today, but fulfillment tomorrow. People say they want growth, but what they really want is growth without discomfort. They want change that doesn't change anything. They want rewards without the risk, progress without the pain, success without sacrifice. That mindset is where dreams go to die. The good voice refuses to let that happen. It doesn't negotiate with your excuses. It doesn't accept your limitations as facts. It keeps pushing, even when you try to silence it. It challenges you in moments others can't see. When you are lying in bed at night knowing you didn't give your best. When you avoid the task you said you would complete. When you scroll endlessly through distractions instead of building something meaningful, the good voice interrupts you there. It tells you the truth that comfort tries to hide. You are not tired. You are undisciplined. You are not stuck. You are scared. You are not unlucky. You are uncommitted. Comfort hates that kind of clarity because clarity destroys excuses. Growth begins when excuses die. The voice pushes you to get up earlier, to work longer, to focus deeper, to execute consistently, even when the results aren't visible yet. It demands patience when you want shortcuts. It demands action when you want validation. It demands faith when you want guarantees. The reason people avoid listening to this voice is because it asks for accountability. Comfort gives you permission to blame circumstances, timing, or other people. The good voice reminds you that responsibility is not a burden, it's freedom. The moment you take responsibility for your life, you regain control of it. Growth lives inside that responsibility. Every time you ignore the voice, you feel a subtle discomfort. Not the discomfort of growth, but the discomfort of knowing you are betraying your own potential. That feeling builds until you either confront it or numb it. Most numb it with entertainment, gossip, cheap dopamine, and distractions. They confuse noise with progress, activity with productivity, motion with momentum. The good voice sees through all of that. It demands growth because growth is the natural state of anything alive. Trees grow, muscles grow, skills grow, businesses grow, relationships grow. The only things that don't grow are things that are dead. When you refuse growth, you aren't protecting your life, you are suffocating it. The voice doesn't let you stay in emotional hibernation. It provokes you. It reminds you that discomfort isn't a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're evolving. Comfort pretends to protect you, but what it protects you from is the very thing that would elevate you. The good voice pushes you into environments where you must become better. It forces you to confront the version of yourself that is cheap, complacent, fragile, and distracted. It demands a newer version, stronger, sharper, more resilient. Growth happens when your actions align with your potential rather than your excuses. The voice knows when you are selling yourself short. It knows when you are capable of more. It knows when the life you are living is smaller than the life you could build. It does not let you rest until those two realities match. It is the inner architect of your destiny, constantly redesigning, reconstructing, and recalibrating the blueprint of your future. And every time you choose comfort, you delay that construction. Every time you choose growth, you accelerate it. The voice challenges comfort not because it enjoys struggle, but because it understands what you can't see yet. Comfort feels good now and costs you later. Growth feels heavy now and pays you forever. The voice stands guard over that truth. It reminds you that the person you want to be is waiting on the other side of the discomfort you keep avoiding. Your inner voice defines your identity more than outside opinions. It is the silent architect of your character, the invisible force shaping your decisions, your habits, and ultimately your destiny. While the world speaks loudly, offering labels, judgments, and expectations, your inner voice operates beneath the surface, continuously narrating who you think you are and what you are capable of becoming. Most people believe that identity is something given by society, family, or circumstance. They don't realize that identity is built internally. It doesn't matter what people call you. What matters is what you answer to. Your inner voice is the filter through which every compliment, every criticism, and every challenge passes. It is the interpreter, the judge, and the storyteller of your life. External voices can only influence you to the degree that your inner voice allows them to. Some people crumble because they have a weak internal voice, a voice shaped by fear, insecurity, and self-doubt. They become victims of opinions because they never formed a conviction about who they are. They wait for someone to validate them, approve them, or give them permission to act. But if your identity is outsourced to others, you will always be fragile. You will become a mirror reflecting whatever others think, rather than a lighthouse projecting your own direction. True strength begins when your inner voice stops asking, "What will they think?" and starts saying, "This is who I am." Your identity is not discovered by accident. It's forged through repetition. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you strengthen your inner voice. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken it. Identity is built through the internal evidence you accumulate. If your inner voice sees you quit when things get hard, it registers you as someone who gives up easily. If it sees you push despite discomfort, it identifies you as someone who doesn't break under pressure. Your inner voice is always watching you. It knows your truth even when others see your mask. You cannot lie to yourself without consequence because the inner voice records your behavior, not your intentions. It doesn't care what you planned to do, it cares what you actually did. External voices are inconsistent. They cheer when you succeed, disappear when you struggle, and criticize when you dare to do something different. If you build your identity on applause, you will collapse during silence. Your inner voice, however, doesn't need applause. It operates on standards, not opinions. It tells you whether you're living below or above your potential. It knows when you've accepted mediocrity, even if everyone else calls you successful. And because it knows the truth, it becomes the most accurate evaluation of who you are. Others may see what you've done, but your inner voice sees who you had to become to do it. That difference is everything. Many people struggle not because they lack ability, but because their inner voice has been corrupted by years of negative reinforcement. They were told they weren't enough, and eventually they believed it. That belief became identity, and once identity solidifies, behavior follows. A person who believes they are incapable will sabotage opportunities. A person who believes they are unworthy will reject love, success, or recognition. A person who believes they are destined for failure won't even try. That is the power of internal narrative. You cannot outperform the identity you've accepted. You can temporarily rise above it, but you'll always return to what you believe you deserve. Your inner voice must become stronger than the world's noise. The world will tell you what you should want, how you should live, and what you should fear. But the world speaks from its limitations, not your potential. If you allow external opinions to dictate your identity, you will inherit other people's insecurities. People project their fears onto others. They ridicule ambition because ambition exposes their lack of action. They discourage dreams because dreams remind them of what they abandoned. They question your plans not because they doubt your abilities, but because your pursuit magnifies their excuses. You cannot let voices like that define you. Identity built from within is unshakable because it's not dependent on conditions. When your inner voice decides who you are, circumstances don't change your direction. They challenge you to prove it. This is why some people thrive under pressure while others break. Pressure amplifies identity. If your core belief is weak, adversity destroys you. If your core belief is strong, adversity refines you. Your inner voice either becomes your anchor or your enemy. It either stabilizes you or sabotages you. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your identity. And if that identity was shaped by external voices, you will never feel ownership over your life. Your identity evolves every time you choose your voice over theirs, every time you resist the temptation to conform, every time you do something no one believes you can do, every time you act without asking for permission. The inner voice grows louder, more confident, more certain. Over time, it transforms from a whisper into a command. It stops questioning your worth and starts declaring it. It no longer says, "Can I?" It says, "Watch me." That transition is the birth of internal authority, the moment when your life stops being reactive and becomes intentional. When your inner voice defines your identity, criticism becomes information, not intimidation. You no longer fear opinions because you're not living for approval. You're living from alignment. You know who you are, so you don't panic when someone disagrees. Identity built externally is fragile. It shatters with rejection. Identity built internally is resilient. It grows through resistance. You begin to understand that people aren't against you. They're against themselves, and you simply remind them of what they're avoiding. Your existence becomes a mirror that exposes their lack of action, and not everyone likes what they see. But identity isn't about being liked, it's about being aligned. The inner voice is also your moral compass. It knows when you're cutting corners, pretending, or settling. Even if the world celebrates you, your inner voice will call you out. It doesn't care about appearances, it cares about truth. Some people appear confident, but internally they're broken because their achievements don't match their identity. They climbed a ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. They chased recognition and lost themselves in the process. Their external voice convinced the world they were successful, but their inner voice knows they betrayed their potential. That's why peace doesn't come from success, it comes from integrity. When your actions align with your identity, your inner voice becomes quiet, calm, and powerful. Your identity is ultimately the story you accept. You can rewrite it anytime, but rewriting requires confrontation. You must confront the lies you've inherited, the beliefs you've borrowed, and the limitations you've adopted without questioning. You must decide whether your inner voice will be an echo of the world or the author of your future. Identity isn't found, it's chosen, and once chosen, it must be reinforced by action. Every decision becomes a vote for the person you're becoming. Each vote strengthens the voice. The more votes you cast, the clearer the identity becomes. The clearer the identity, the easier the decisions. The easier the decisions, the stronger the momentum. Your inner voice, when trained, becomes your greatest ally. It is the foundation of confidence, the birthplace of discipline, and the fuel of ambition. It decides what you believe you're worth, what you pursue, and what you tolerate. External voices may influence your journey, but your inner voice determines your destination. Identity is not shaped by circumstance, but by conviction, and conviction is born inside you long before the world knows your name. Listening to excuses destroys potential faster than failure ever could. Failure has an honest nature. It gives you data, feedback, experience, and clarity. Excuses, on the other hand, are deceptive. They disguise themselves as logic, justification, and protection. They make you feel safe while quietly stealing your ambition. Excuses whisper to you in your weakest moments, offering comfortable alternatives to responsibility. They tell you there's always tomorrow, that conditions aren't right, that someone else has it easier, that you don't have time, that you're not ready yet. Each excuse feels harmless in the moment, but over time they accumulate and bury your potential under layers of self-deception. Excuses thrive where accountability is absent. They seduce you into believing that you're not the problem, that life, circumstances, timing, or other people are the reason for your lack of progress. This mindset feels good because it protects your ego from discomfort. It's easier to say, "I could if I wanted to," than to admit the truth. You didn't want it badly enough to pay the price. People who habitually make excuses become experts at rationalizing stagnation. They develop complex arguments to defend why they haven't taken action, and the more practiced they become in avoiding responsibility, the further they drift from their potential. What they don't realize is that every excuse is a withdrawal from the bank of their future. Failure can be turned into growth. Excuses calcify into identity. A person who fails knows they tried. A person who excuses knows nothing except how to talk. Talking about plans, potential, and dreams becomes their version of effort. They convince themselves that intention equals execution. They become storytellers of what could have been. Excuses transform dreams into fantasies because fantasies require no action. There is a massive difference between someone who failed their way forward and someone who excused their way in circles. One is on a path, the other is standing still while pretending to move. Excuses are so dangerous because they feel true. They mimic logic. They take pieces of reality and twist them just enough to make quitting seem reasonable. I can start when things calm down. I need the right tools first. I don't have enough support. These statements sound rational, but they're rotten foundations. If your progress depends on perfect conditions, you will never progress. Successful people don't wait for ideal circumstances. They create momentum out of imperfect ones. They fail, learn, adjust, and move again. Their identity is built on execution, not explanation. Excuses disconnect you from your own agency. As soon as you justify why something can't be done, you give up control. The moment you say, "I can't," you stop asking, "How can I?" The brain shuts down creative problem solving and replaces it with self-preservation. Excuses build psychological fences that trap you inside the boundaries of your current life. Eventually, you stop testing your limits because you've convinced yourself they are permanent. Potential becomes irrelevant, dreams become unrealistic, goals become optional, excuses are addictive. Once you start using them, they multiply. Every time you escape responsibility, you reinforce the belief that comfort is better than growth. You train your mind to avoid anything uncomfortable, challenging, or uncertain, but all transformation requires discomfort. Growth demands inconvenience. Talent is nothing without effort, and effort is impossible when excuses dominate your belief system. Excuses turn opportunities into burdens, challenges into threats, and ambition into anxiety. The tragedy is that most people don't recognize excuses as the enemy. They see them as protection. Excuses shield your ego from embarrassment, shield your insecurities from exposure, shield your fears from confrontation. They're like a blanket on a cold night, comforting but confining. They make you feel safe while trapping you where you are. Failure demands courage because it exposes your limits and invites improvement. Excuses require nothing. No courage, no action, no growth. They let you stay exactly where you are and call it acceptable. But every excuse has a price. The price is regret. Regret is not the pain of what you did. It's the pain of what you never tried. Talk to anyone who wasted years behind excuses, and they will tell you the same thing. They would give anything to go back and start when they said they weren't ready. Read the stories of people who achieved breakthroughs, and you'll discover that none of them were ready either. They acted anyway. They became ready by moving, by failing, by adjusting. Readiness is not a condition. It is a consequence. Excuses keep you waiting for a moment that will never arrive. Excuses also destroy self-trust. Every time you promise yourself something and don't follow through, your mind learns not to believe you. The inner voice weakens, your confidence crumbles. Eventually, you stop setting goals because you know you won't act on them. You begin to fear your own promises. That loss of self-trust is more damaging than any failure could ever be. Failure teaches resilience. Excuses teach avoidance. Resilience builds character. Avoidance builds fear. People who live behind excuses often envy those who achieve. They convince themselves that others had it easier, were luckier, or were naturally more talented. They ignore the truth. Achievers simply refused to negotiate with excuses. They acted when they were scared. They learned when they were ignorant. They sacrificed when it was inconvenient. The difference between a person who changes their life and one who doesn't is not talent, circumstance, or luck, it's responsibility. Responsibility is the antidote to excuses. The moment you decide everything is on you, excuses lose their power. Excuses destroy potential because potential needs action. Potential without action is wasted energy. It's like having a seed and refusing to plant it because the soil isn't perfect. Excuses convince you to wait, to pause, to postpone your future. But time doesn't pause for you. Potential decays when unused. The longer you wait, the heavier the excuses become. They evolve into beliefs, and beliefs turn into identity. When someone says, "I'm not disciplined," "I'm not lucky," "I'm not smart enough," what they really mean is, "My excuses have become who I am." Your life will always offer two choices, excuses or results. You cannot have both. You can either find reasons or make progress. The people who build extraordinary lives are not the ones who avoided failure. They are the ones who refused to entertain excuses. They saw excuses for what they truly are, invisible shackles that keep you comfortably trapped at the level you secretly hate.